Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Dark Side. This is part two of the Root Smart walkthrough, in which we're going to have a look at the ingredients and some supplementary stuff as well that you will need to advance in the Root Smart and use for your spells that we will be covering in part four of this walkthrough. In part one, we had a look at how to craft the basic stuff that you will need to get started. So if you haven't seen that video yet, go and have a look. But let's get into this. Now for part two, we're going to look at how do you actually start getting the ingredients that you need to start crafting the spells that you're going to be using. The first thing is going to be making some petals. For this, you're going to use any flour and put it into the mortar. So you can put up to five of anything into that. And when you activate it with the pestle, it will give you the ingredients. That's kind of, this has a lot of usages outside of roots as well. As you can see, you can kind of use this to make a variety of different materials that kind of has a higher yield than it normally would. Moving on, we're going to make our first spell. So for that, you're going to need a mossy block, a door, wild root, a petal, and any sapling. You're going to put that into the mortar and pestle, and that will give you the spell dust being Grove Supplication. You're going to take that spell dust, put it into the imbuer, and in the end, you'll get this nifty little wand that's going to be used to kind of activate the spell. So you can see it just takes a couple of seconds and then it gives it to you. Inside your component pouch, you're going to need some wild root for this spell, as that's the base ingredient that is needed. Just going to put this back. So with the wild root in your pouch and your pouch on your person and the wand in hand, you're just going to look at your grovestone and activate it. That will activate the grovestone. And as you'll see, if we take ourselves a little fake crafter here, place it close to the grovestone. Once you go into it, it will no longer have that little red X on top of it, and you'll be able to craft using the fake crafter. But more on that later as well. Then the most important thing for the base ingredients that we're going to need, oh, I'm just going to deactivate this. As you saw, it kind of spawns a lot of natural stuff, including flowers, grass, and so on. That can be annoying, so I usually just put a bunch of stone around it so that it can't spawn any plants around it. So what we're going to need is a bunch of elemental soil to your liking. Now, the elemental soil can be very useful outside of the roots mods, but for specifically four of the ingredients that we're going to grow, you're going to need specific variants of the the soil to grow specific ingredients. So for that, you're going to need a piece of gravel, terra moss, bone meal, wild root, and a piece of dirt. Now, one of these will give you a stack of, or not a stack, a bunch of four. So for every four soil that you're going to need, you're going to need to do this recipe once. You're going to put all those ingredients into the Fey Crafter and then look at the Fey Crafter and activate it with a knife in your hand. That will automatically give you as much of the output that the inputs can make. So once you have your elemental soil in hand, there's a few things you can do with it. The first thing is to make Kalic soil. For that, you're going to need to be at a Y level of more than 90. And you're just going to drop that on the floor. And after a couple of seconds, all the soil that was dropped on the floor will turn into the Kalic soil. For the aqua soil, you're going to drop it in water. For the magmatic soil, you're going to drop it in lava. This might seem very scary, but trust me, it is safe. And then lastly, for the Terran soil, you're going to need to drop it at a Y level of less than 30. So to demonstrate, I'm going to take this water, it can be any water source, and you're just going to plop that in there. And after a couple seconds, you'll have your aqua soil. And you can do that for all the varieties and get as much of these as you can. Now, to go through it quickly, there is a few things that you'll need to note. The aqua soil will automatically harvest anything that's grown on it, even non-roots ingredients. If you want to kind of circumvent that, all you need to do is take a piece of gravel and place it underneath the aqua soil. That will prevent it from harvesting it automatically. The magmatic soil also has something interesting that happens where once you harvest something from it, it will give you the cooked variant instead of the base variant that you can get. So if you want to have a cooked aubergine farm or a cooked potato farm, baked potato farm, this soil will be very useful for that as well. Now let's get into the actual ingredients that we're going to need. The first one is the cloudberries that can only be grown on the calyx soil that we made here. So for that, you're going to need a piece of grass, leaves of any variety, wool, and 2 terra moss. You're going to place that on the pyre and activate it with a flint and steel, and after a few seconds, it will give you a couple of cloudberries. Now, you can plant these on the calyx soil and grow them, or you can repeat this recipe to get more. That's up to you. Then we're going to need Dugonias, that's only on the water one. You're going to need grass, moss, sugar, lapis, and a lily pad. Same thing, put those ingredients on a pyre, put it on fire, and it will give you a couple of Dugonias after a couple of seconds. You can again repeat the recipe or grow them yourselves. The infernal bulb is a bit harder to get early game because you're going to need a few things that might take some time, or specifically the magma cream, gunpowder, glowstone, and lava, which might not be easily accessible straight away. But after a trip to the nether, it should be fairly easy to get the infernal bulbs as well, which is grown on the fire soil as well. Then the last elemental one we're going to need is the stalactites, which is the earth variety, which is just a wild root, flint, iron, redstone, and stone. Same thing as the others, just another variety. You'll also come across a few necessities like different types of bark. The bark is very easy to get as well. You're going to find yourself a log. You just take your stone knife and break it. It can be any knife variety, point being that it will drop the bark that corresponds with the type of wood that you broke. Then we have a couple of other ingredients that we can craft after all of those, which is the first one being the moon glow leaf. For that, you're going to need oak leaf or leaves of any variety, a piece of glass, nether quartz, and some bark. 2 bark specifically, you're going to put those into the pyre, put it on fire, and it will give you your ingredients. These can be crafted into seeds to plant. You can't plant it just like that. Next, we're going to need the Bereskia, which is going to need some sugarcane, redstone, wild root, glistening melon, and beetroot. This might also be one that might take a while to get since the glistening melon isn't freely available all the time, but some of the mods can make it easier to acquire. This can also be turned into seeds which can be planted and can't be planted just like that. In my opinion, this is one of the most important ones to actually have a proper farm for because of some of my favorite spells from this mod. And then we'll have a baffle cup, which you're going to need a brown mushroom, a red mushroom, a fermented spider eye, a seed, and some terra moss. This can't be planted like the other ingredients, but you can grow it in similar fashions than you would the normal mushrooms. Either you can put it in a dark space and it will spread automatically, or you can put it down in a dark space, use some bone meal on it, and grow it into a big tree, which can then be harvested to gain some extra. Then, using the Fey Crafter, you're going to want to craft yourself a couple of rune stones. Again, you're going to need some stone, so 4 stone and 1 lapis. In the Fey Crafter, we'll give you a couple of rune stones, which is very important later on in the mod, but specifically for the next one, which is going to be a runic shear. Now, the runic shear is going to be used to get the last ingredients that we need, as well as some essential mob drops that can't be obtained in any other way. So for this, you're going to need shears, 2 runestones, and 2 periscias. Put that into your Fey Crafter and activate it with a knife, and it will drop one of these shears. Now, using these shears is pretty easy. The first one we're going to look at is wild wheat. To get wild wheat, you're going to grow yourself some wheat and not harvest it yet. With the runic shears in your hand, if you harvest a wheat plant, instead of the normal wheat, it will drop wild wheat. The wild wheat can be turned into seeds to plant and can't be planted just like that. Same thing for the spirit herb, except that is gotten from beetroot plants. And then the last thing the Fey Crafter can be used for is to get some Fey leather. So you're going to find yourself a cow or a horse or a donkey or something similar. You're going to go up to them and shear them. That will give you some Fey leather. Now, you'll see the phase equivalent has nothing for you. You can only use this every couple of minutes on a single animal. So if you have a cow farm, you can use it as much as you want on different cows and it will drop. And that brings us to the end of the ingredients.